I had devised a scheme along with a partner to basically defraud the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. There was a loophole that I was able to capitalize on. And as a result, you know, to make a very long story short, over an 8-year period of time, I was selling half a billion gallons of gas a month, and we were taking down 30 to 40 cents a gallon. So if you do the math, it was a lot of money. It was several $1 million a week. And, you know, we ran it for 8 years, and it was very sophisticated because I had people in there. Here was my challenge.
At the age of 35, in 1986, Fortune magazine listed Franzese as number 18 on its list of 50 most wealthy and powerful mafia bosses. Vanity Fair cited him as one of the biggest money earners of the Mafia since Al Capone. He made over 10 million a week and over $1 billion a year in his prime. He spent 10 years in jail and was charged by former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani. I introduce to you former captain of the Colombo crime family, Michael Franzese.
How are you, Goran?
I'm very good, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Thank you for doing this, and thank you for coming back to Australia as well.
Got it. I love it here.
Mate, I wanted to really say what an incredible life story. I've been very fortunate. I've worked with some of the top celebrities and talent around the world. I've been around the world, so I've had a fortunate life to meet incredible people with incredible life stories. And I have to say, you've got one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard.
Well, thank you.
And the flip side to that, which a lot of people don't know as well, is Michael is generally a genuine person, a really genuine person, a man of his word, and a very hard-working person as well.
Appreciate that.
We've done events, we've done a lot of PR, we've done so many different elements, and he's the last person to leave, the first person to come, and he just won't stop until every question's answered, every book is signed, every photo is taken, which is rare in that, you know, in that field of public speaking and things like that. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for being how you are, how you carry yourself, and what you do for, you know, the people and the fans and everything else from that end.
Well, you know, Goran, I got to tell you, I thank my dad for that, because at a young age, my dad always told me, he said, Michael, always be kind and take care of the little people. Now, when he said that, he didn't mean that in a demeaning way. It was just his way of talking. He said, because they're the ones that make you strong. They're the ones that appreciate. He said, not the people on top. He said, a lot of times they're looking to cut your legs out. He said, but you treat people respectfully in the right way, and it comes back in big time for you, and it's worked for me.
Yeah, that is really good advice. But you looked up to your dad from a lot of that advice and direction. And
yeah, my dad gave me a lot of good advice. You know, he was a good father in that regard, and he was very wise, and he knew how to navigate life pretty well. You know, unfortunately, he got in a bad situation himself, but he always taught his children the right way.
But discipline would have been one of the biggest factors as well, how you carry yourself.
Absolutely. Right? Discipline, respect was very, very big to him. And, you know, the old timers had a little different, you know, view of life. And fortunately for me, you know, one of the things he always told me is, Mike, be a good listener. He says, when you get advice at any age, he said, it doesn't matter. He says, until you leave this earth, you're going to hear advice. He said, if it's good, accept it, take it, be humble in that regard. And I never forgot that, you know, and it's worked well for me.
It's really good to know. Yeah. But also loyalty, right?
Loyalty, very important. You know, keeping your word, very important.
Which you don't see much these days, right? People keep on changing, and there's
no, you don't see it, you know, and it's very sad. You know, our young people, you know, what I found out, you know, people need mentors. And unfortunately, the way society is now, a lot of young people grow up without that. And I think we're seeing, you know, the result of that, which is not good. So, you know, I always advise people, have a mentor, somebody you know, really respect. You know, I bring up Mike Tyson. Mike will tell you, if you ask him, where would you have been without Customato? He said, I can't even think about it. He said, I would have been dead, and it would have been over, nothing. And he said, but he was a mentor that I really respected. And as a result, youngest heavyweight champion in the world, you know. So, you know, people have to understand that, you know, take advice, listen to somebody that's trying to help you. It goes a long way.
Yeah. Now, from that list of 18, how many of them are still alive today?
Yeah, the Fortune magazine article, you know, it was written in '86. And the unfortunate thing about that is that 48 of them are dead. And when you think about it, Goran, that's not really a long time. It's 30 some odd years, but 48 people dying within 38 years. And so many of them died in prison. Some people died, tragically. But 48 dead, and number 49 is still in prison. And he's elderly. I think he's in his 90s. And I'm the only one free and alive. Yeah, so it's a blessing.
Lucky as you changed your life and, you found a different path,
Yeah.
that pretty much probably saved you and definitely saved you from, where you were
Yes.
going or where you could have been heading.
Yeah, and again, I look at that as discipline. I had to restructure my life in order to, to get where I am today. And, made some mistakes along the way, obviously, and I paid for them, but it's worked out.
Now, one of the Vanity Fair also said that 8 million or 10 million per week that you were making. What were you doing? What were some of the activities that you were doing to bring in that type of money?
When I got into the life, I was fortunate in that I knew how to use the life to benefit me in business, and I had an entrepreneurial brain, I guess. And so I saw certain aspects of the life that could be an asset if you used it the right way. And I don't want to say mastered that, maybe that's not the right word, but I kind of used it effectively. And so I had legitimate business, that I ran legitimately, and then I had business on the street, so to speak. And you know what I found out, Goran? Business is business. Whether it be illegal or legal, you still got to run it properly, or otherwise you're not going to survive. So we did quite well. I had the dealerships that I built up. I had a production company. I had a couple of restaurants that I owned. I had a big portfolio in that regard. But quite honestly, I had devised a scheme along with a partner to basically defraud the government out of tax on every gallon of gasoline. There was a loophole that I was able to capitalize on. And as a result, to make a very long story short, over an 8-year period of time, I was selling half a billion gallons of gas a month, and we were taking down 30 to 40 cents a gallon. So if you do the math, it was a lot of money. It was several $1 million a week. And, we ran it for 8 years, and it was very sophisticated because I had people in there. Here was my challenge. I had to have a sophisticated group of professional people to do the accounting, but I had to do it in a way that they didn't realize what we were doing because I didn't want to expose myself to them. So, and I think if you look at this, that was the mastery in the deal. And I don't claim credit alone. I had a partner that was very brilliant also. And we kind of figured it out together so that we couldn't create people that could come back and, and hurt us. And there were other people doing it, but they didn't do it as effectively as we did. And it ended up being a big deal.
Yeah, wow. So they really didn't know, right? There was multiple structures and layers of management and
we had layers, and the government could not figure out what we were doing. They knew something was going down, but they couldn't figure it out at all. And if my partner didn't, get himself in trouble and really expose the whole deal himself, they wouldn't have known. They wouldn't have known.
Incredible. How did you adapt to prison life when you were sentenced for 10 years in 1986? What were some of the challenges you faced behind bars?
Well, losing your freedom is one of the real dramatic, times in your life. I mean, you have to experience it to know how it feels. I was a little bit more prepared because I had visited my father for over 20 years, so I knew what prison was about. But still, you're losing your freedom, you're away from the people that you love, you're answering to people that on the street they would be answering to you. So you have to really adapt and adjust to that. And especially if you're a high profile like I was, where people are looking to, capitalize on you in some way. But I had a good mindset for that. And I always looked at the end game when I was getting out and how I was going to prepare for that. But I had a rougher time in prison because I was a target of the government. And they did some things to me in there, like put me on diesel therapy, which means that they ship you to different prisons around the country. You never get comfortable, and you can't get visits, and it's very hard to communicate with your loved ones. So that was tough. They gave me 8 months of that. And then I was in solitary for almost 3 years. And that was very difficult. And No matter what anybody says, I've learned that isolation like that is a form of torture. I'm dead set against it for young people because it'll ruin them, you know, emotionally. I saw a lot of bad things go on with guys that couldn't handle it in the night, you know, trying to get out of there. They would do crazy things to themselves. But I was fortunate, you know, I was a person of faith during that time, and I always focused on getting out to see my family and was able to hold it together.
You shared there was 3 words that you used in prison that really got you
Yes.
through. There was some really good advice.
Again, from my dad.
Yep.
He says, son, if you ever go to prison or when you go to prison, remember 3 words that are going to go a long way. Please, thank you, excuse me. The reason for that, he said, because all the guys in there that never got any respect on the street want all the respect in there so they can show the other people that there's something, you know? And so he said, if you cut in online because you have a friend there on the food line, he said, say, excuse me, do you mind if I get in there? Not like you're disrespecting them by getting in front of them. You want extra phone time? Please, do you mind if I get on for an extra minute? And somebody hands you something, you say thank you. And it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of courtesy. And people respect that because they feel, oh, you're respecting me. And that's really what it's about. And I employed that during my time. I never had a problem in prison. I saw other guys, I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but John Gotti got beat up in prison. And guys that tried to throw their weight around, because you can be a mob boss in prison, but when guys are doing life and you disrespect them, they don't care who you are in there, you know? So you have to have a certain amount of humility, you know? It's important.
Yeah, wise words. Because they've got nothing to lose, right?
Nothing to
Some of them
lose.
got life sentences.
They don't
Even
care
if
who
they
you are.
extend it, nothing's going to happen to them, right? They've got, yeah.
They're never coming home, and you know, they don't care who you are, and rightfully so, because what are you going to do to them in there? You know, it's yeah, you have to understand that mentality right away.
Well, even
you know?
the guards, right? They can only protect you to a point, right? Depending on.
Well, you know, I saw a few incidents in there where there was a fight, and the guards run away. They don't want to get in the mix. They run away. They come back a minute or two later. They shoot rubber bullets at you. By that time, somebody's hurt bad, or the whole thing is out of hand. They literally run away because they don't want to get in the middle of it. Yeah, and you know, maybe they'll call a whole bunch of guards to come in but by that time, it's already far beyond what it should have been.
And how do you stay sane, like your mindset, you know, to be locked up, especially like what you said in the hole and stuff like that? How do you know, knowing that you've got a sentence for such a long period of time, you know, how do you keep yourself positive and keep yourself going every day without giving up?
It's hard. You got to focus on the end game. You know, the guys that do the best time in prison are the guys that have nothing on the outside, because their whole focus is day to day in there. When you have people that you love, I'll give you an example, Goran. I was in one prison, and at 12 o'clock at night, the phones went off. So I used to get on the line, because the phones are a real hot spot in prison. You don't disrespect people, because people want to talk to their lawyer, they want to talk to their family, and if you're into their time, a lot of bad things happen, right? So I'm waiting online. I get on the phone at 12 o'clock just to say goodnight to my wife and children. And I pick up the phone, and my father-in-law answers, and I said, well, where's Cammie? And he says, oh my God, the kids, she had to rush them to the hospital, and then the phones clicked off. Oh my God, what happened, right? That was one of the worst 6 hours of my life, because from 12 to 6 in the morning, the phones were off. So 6 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I'm thinking, what happened, my kids? And 6 in the morning, I get her on the phone. I said, what happened? She said, they took a bottle of Flintstones vitamins, and they ate the whole bottle. They thought it was candy. So she had to take them to the hospital to get it out of their system. That's all it was. But what a night. Every time I think of it, I get scared, you know, because God forbid, you don't know what happens. So you have things like that. But for me, it was focusing on my family, getting out. I just never gave up.
But did you just think about each hour of the day, like, or was it every day just to get through? Because I read a story, I watched something about a soldier, and the soldier got actually separated from their platoon, right? And the biggest thing they found, and the person wasn't able to survive after a week. There was no food, whatever that period of time was. Mm-hmm. And when they did find that person, they asked, how did you survive? Mm-hmm. I just focused on one step at a time. Mm-hmm. So literally it was the right foot, left foot, just step at a time. Mm-hmm. And within that period,
yes,
just focusing on that got them to the end goal to be able to be saved, right? So
I understand that. It's one day at a time.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things I have to tell you, music. I don't know what I would have done without my Sony Walkman at the time, and able to listen to music that was just soothing and relaxing. And you know, the great thing about, even when I was in the hole in solitary, when you get to the halfway mark, because every day in solitary is like, it's one long day. Nothing changes. It's all the same. So it's like you look back and you go, wow, I already did 2 years? Where did the time go? When you hit the halfway mark and you start to go down, something happens emotionally, mentally. I don't know what it is when you start to say, okay, I'm going to make this. And so when I did that, you know, there's 29 months and 7 days, you count the days. When I hit the halfway mark, it started to get a little easier to contend with. Yeah. And then, then you start counting the days, you know. I had a calendar, I didn't want to look at it. Yeah, you don't want to look at it, because, you know, then it depends how you view it. Oh my God, it's so much. Or, oh gosh, it's I've reached this already. It's a mindset. It's absolutely a mindset.
Have you always been calm? Because that's one of the questions people ask me. How is he so calm? How is he so, you know, you're very level?
You know, pretty much, and that was a product of my former life, because you could not lose your temper in that life in the wrong situation. You had to be respectful, and there were times when you just had to, you know, bite your tongue because you wanted to be upset, but I always had to maintain control in that way. It serves you well. Every guy in that life that I saw that could not maintain control didn't last. Yeah, they met with a bad ending. And so I guess I get carried through. I mean, every once in a while I get a little crazy, but not often.
So I heard a story about your father when he was sentenced. He said something to the judge and the jury. It's probably best if you take us through that, but I thought that was a really interesting story.
I was in the courtroom, and it was sentencing day for him on this bank robbery case that he had. And the judge looked at him and sentenced him to 2 25-year terms back to back to run consecutive. So it was 50 years. And the judge said, Mr. Franzese, do you want to address the court in any way? Do you have anything to say? Now, he just got sentenced to 50 years. And my father said, yes, Your Honor. He looked at him, he said, I'm going to fool you and everybody in this courtroom. I'm going to do the whole 50. That was his response. And my dad was sentenced in 1970. He was actually convicted in 1967, sentenced in 1970, and he was released in 2017. He did the whole 50. He did the whole 50. The judge passed away, all of his co-defendants passed away, the prosecutor passed away, and probably all the jurors. And he was the only one that lasted.
Yeah, I lived him, That was an amazing story. Like when I first heard that, I was like, wow.
Well, I'll tell the follow-up to that. After my mom passed away, I went to see my dad, and we were in they let us go into the attorney's room because I had to talk to him about, something so sensitive. And he looked at me and he said, what do I have to live for? He said, my wife is dead. I'm going to probably die in this place. And he was really down. And I never saw my dad really get depressed. He was always, a fighter. And I looked at him and I said, hey, you're getting weak on me? He don't like the word weak, right? He said, what do you mean? I said, you sound depressed. He says, well, what I got? And I said, let me remind you of something. And I go back to, April so-and-so, Judge Mishler's courtroom. You said I'm going to do the whole 50. And he perked up. He said, darn right. I keep my word even to that rat judge. He said, I'm not dying until 2017. That's exactly what he told me. And that's when he got released, 2017, and then passed away in 2020 at 103.
103 years old.
103 years old. He was 100 when he was released from prison, the oldest inmate in the system, and 103 when he died, probably the oldest made guy in the world. You don't live to that age in that life, but he outlived everybody.
And he looked good, like for that age. When you saw the photos of 100, 103.
For 103, maybe 85. Yeah, he looked 80, 85.
Was there any vitamins? Or I know one of the things that you kept on telling is he loved his vitamins.
Doran, he was a vitamin freak. That's the only way I could tell. He would take 30 pills a day. When we were kids, he would chase us around the house with cod liver oil. Like the Little Rascals. I don't know if you remember. And my brother and sister would run away, and I would take it, but he believed in vitamins. As a matter of fact, when he was in jail, in prison, it was the only thing he used to get really mad at. He said, they won't give me my vitamins in here. You got to talk to the warden. I said, Dad, they're going to listen to me about putting vitamins in here? And I would say, you want me to smuggle them in? No, 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 I can't get caught like that. You know, I didn't want to. I said, but I'll tell, and I did. I tried to tell his casework. I said, my father's a vitamin guy. Oh, we can only get so much in here. So I got him some good. Yeah, I got him like one a days, you know, but I said, I can't get you 30 pills that you want, you know.
At least you can get something.
But it bothered him. He was so mad. My mother used to say, your father's going to outlive everybody. And she was right. She said he's going to outlive, and she was 17 years younger than him. But she said, Mike, I'm going before your father. He's going to outlive everybody. He's got a clear head, and those vitamins are going to preserve him. She said it just like that. Funny.
There was a story I heard regarding your father and Marilyn Monroe. I'm not sure, is that true or is it a rumor?
Here's what happened, you know. My dad became such a target in the 60s. It was unbelievable, the kind of scrutiny he got, and the law enforcement came after him, you know, 4 trials and everything. So one day, when we were in the visiting room again, I said, Dad, let me ask you this. My mom had passed away. I said, why you? I mean, Carlo Gambino was around at the time. Genovese was around at the time. All of these guys that, don't get insulted, Dad. I said, but they had big names too. Why you? So he said to me, well, I never wanted to tell you this while your mother was alive, but I'm going to tell you now. I said, what? He said, you know, what's his name? Oh, gosh. Frank Costello owned the Stork Club. He had a piece of the Stork Club. It was a famous club in Manhattan. So he said, one night I go in there, and Marilyn Monroe walks in. And so Frank says, you want me to introduce you to Marilyn? So he says, yeah. So he meets Marilyn. He says, and from that point on, I had a little bit of an affair with her, you know? And he says, and then I broke it off when I was with your mother at the time. I broke it off, and she was having an affair with Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General at the time. And the way he tells the story, he says, and one night Marilyn told me this, that while he was making love to Robert Kennedy, she called out my name. I said, Dad, you know, he said, no, it's true story, son, true story. And she said, from that point on, Robert Kennedy called up J. Edgar Hoover and said, I want Sonny Franzese behind bars. And that's how it started. And I said, Dad, you have a tendency to exaggerate. I said, but you know what? It makes sense. Because up to that point, the FBI and Hoover, they wouldn't go after any Mafia guys because we had something on Hoover, right? We had dirt on him. But then Robert Kennedy came down on him. I said, Dad, you know, this makes sense. I said, it could possibly be true. He said, no, 100% it's a fact. That's my dad. He makes you laugh.
But you've always said he was a man's man, right? Really
Yes.
following the ethics and all that type of
Yes.
things, and his word's his word, and just
He was
loyal to the...
He was loyal. He was very charismatic in that regard. People looked up to him. I observed my father, the way he carried himself, you know, in his younger days before he went to prison. And it was very attractive. You know, people looked up to him. They respected him. He carried himself well with others, and it was very appealing to me.
I saw some footage that you met the Pope, or the Pope came to meet you. Is that correct?
No, the Pope sent when I was filming a movie where I was helping a lot of kids, the Pope actually sent the Bible from the Vatican. And I don't know if the Pope himself did it, but it was from the Vatican. They sent me a Bible thanking me for the work that we were doing with underprivileged kids. Yeah. Yeah, it was a real, I didn't expect it, you know, but word got back there somehow, and it was wonderful.
What are some of the misconceptions and myths about the Mafia that you'd like to clarify or debunk?
You know, I have to be careful with this because I never want to be perceived as glorifying the mob. I'm not doing that. But there are also misconceptions that sometimes make it look a lot worse than it was in the United States. Now, you have to understand something. The Mafia in the United States operated differently than the Mafia in Italy. And why do I say that? Because the Mafia in Italy, quite honestly, they had a different code of ethics than we did. They went after your family. They went after judges, politicians. And quite honestly, I'm not saying anything out of school. They killed people like that. We didn't have that code. We never went after law enforcement, not allowed to do it. During my era, no drugs. We dealt with drugs, we were told we'd die, and we never, ever bothered the family. Wife, children, off limits. People said to me, Michael, when you walked away from life, were you afraid that your son was in New York? No, I said I wasn't, because we had a strict code, and until this day, I don't know that it's been violated. So we had that respect and honor among family and friends, and we didn't go after police. So sometimes the movies and law enforcement want you to think that we were devils, we were the worst people in the world, and that's just not true. Now, did we kill one another? I want to be honest, yes. But here's now, people may argue with this and say, Michael, your reasoning is so off balance. When we came into the life, we were told straight out, we have a policy, and if you violate that policy, it could be serious enough that you could pay for your life, with your life. What do I mean? If you ever violate another made man's wife, daughter, sister, mother, you're going to die for it. If you steal, a lie, or get involved in drugs, you're going to die for that. You possibly can. We all agree to that. This was our code of ethics. We agreed. So yeah, did we kill one another? Yes. Was there sometimes treachery involved? Because hey, like anything else, it gets corrupted. Government gets corrupted. Catholic Church got corrupted. Christian Church, it's corrupt because it's a street. So it wasn't always followed, but that was the norm. That was the ethic that we had. And sometimes you see these movies and guys were just a bunch of dumb guys extorting people, killing people, shaking people down. That's not true. That's not the majority of guys that I knew that, like my father, that held himself up the right way, like Carmine Persico, Joe Colombo, guys that I respected. So again, I'm trying to cross a line here. I'm not glorifying the life. I always dissuade young people from getting involved. But I want people to know there was an integrity in that life that we tried to carry, and that's why we got involved in it.
You mentioned when you became a made man that you'd have to prioritize that life, even if your mother was sick or your wife was giving birth or whatever it might be.
Yes.
So there was always that priority to the life.
The life came first. I think that was a wrong point of view that I adopted at that time. I don't think I ever kept that because, God forbid, my family was involved. I eventually made the choice to walk away from the life to preserve my family. So I didn't live up to that ethic and that code, and I think that was very misguided to even say that or agree to that. I see that now.
But they followed it, right? It was
To the most part. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, it's one of the issues I had with my dad, that he put that life over our family, and as a result, our family was destroyed. And he would not take responsibility for that. He wouldn't. He said, because I'd said, Dad, you know, the whole family was destroyed. He said, it wasn't my fault. I was framed on this case, which he was. But I would tell him, Dad, you were framed because you're a criminal like me. He didn't want to hear that. He did not want to hear that. But he has to take responsibility. His involvement in that life destroyed my family. There's no other excuse.
You also said if something did happen, a couple of seconds later, he would say, I don't know what you're talking about. What was his famous words he had a saying?
He had a couple of things.
Yeah.
He'll pick up the phone and he'll say, look at this phone, it's a cop. When you pick up a phone, don't think of it as a phone, it's a cop. Watch every word that you say. Okay. He also said, Mike, if you and I were to commit a crime together, 1 millisecond after the crime is committed, if you ask me about it, I'll say, what are you talking about? There's no reason to repeat it ever. He said, that's how you get yourself in trouble. And I never was caught on tape. I never had my voice implicating myself in anything. I had 83 tape recordings on me on an undercover operation with an FBI informant. I didn't know he was undercover. 83 tapes, not one time did I say anything that could hurt myself because I didn't trust the guy to a great degree. I totally attribute my father's teaching to that. He was great. He got, I'll tell you another funny story. My dad, when he got older, he was out on parole. He wasn't as on his game as he was before. And he was with an undercover informant, and they had 200 hours of tapes on him, and they were bad. So I went to see him one time, and I said, Dad, these tapes, I said, I listened to some of them in the courtroom because he got indicted. I said, they're not good. He said, that ain't me. I says, what do you mean it's not you? He said, it's not me. He said, they doctored the tapes. It was him. He wouldn't admit to it because he said, never admit to anything. I said, Dad, it's your voice. You know, that ain't me. Don't buy into that. It's not me. He said, they doctored the tapes. Don't worry, the lawyer's going to destroy it. Meanwhile, he got convicted. He got 8 years. You know, it was so he kind of lost it a little bit. But I never did. I never did. Till today, I'm very careful when I talk on the phone, and you know, you got to watch yourself.
You tried to interview him a few times, I think, with your father, right? To
Yeah.
try and capture some footage and grab some elements, and he
Yes.
just wouldn't talk at all.
Well, I got some footage. Well, he didn't want to do it, and then some people. I felt really bad for him because some guy came in and was talking to him on camera. He didn't realize, because he was 100 years old, he didn't realize that the guy was going to try to put it on YouTube and all of that. Yeah, but
But from what you wanted to do and capture some of those stories from his life, he would not.
no. He said, nah. He says, people don't need to know this and all of that. And yeah, he was reluctant. I didn't push him. You know, that was his principle. I said, fine.
And he was close with Frank Sinatra as well. Or
Yeah.
guys when Frank Sinatra was close.
At the one of the greatest times I remember with my dad was being at the Copacabana, the most famous nightclub in New York and probably in the world at the time. Everybody that was anybody played the Copacabana. My dad was very close with Julie Podell, the owner. We always had a ringside table, and I met everybody: Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Paul Anka, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, you name it. We met him, and they had respect for my dad, and you know, as a kid, it was wonderful. I'll tell you, it's my prom rather, graduated from high school, and we were going to go to the Waldorf Astoria to see The Fifth Dimension. Something happened. One kid's father was setting it up. It all fell apart, right? 3 days before we were supposed to go. So I called my dad. I said, Dad, I seen him. I said, Dad, we got nowhere to go. I said, Dionne Warwick is playing at the Copa. I said, you got to get us in. He's, how many people? I said, 40. He said, 40 people? It's a sold out show. I said, Dad, come on. Boom, he handled it. Ringside table for 40 people. Dionne Warwick that night. It was like my friends went wild, you know. So he had that kind of juice back then, yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. I can't believe 103 years old. It's
103.
incredible.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to young people that are getting lured into the life of crime, or, you know, into these gangs and all these type of different elements? I mean, you've lived through it, you've seen it. What advice would you give them to stay away from that life? Because it just doesn't end well.
You know, I've been doing this now for 25 years. Started in prison, speaking to a lot of young people that came into the system with no father figure, no mentors. And I've been telling them consistently, the gang life, the mob life, dead end street. You're gonna end up in prison, you know, God forbid something worse. And, you know, one of the things I tell these young people, a couple of lessons. I tell them basically three things. Number one, you are who you hang out with in this world. You hang with a bad crowd, you're gonna go in the wrong direction, no question about it. Number two, the path that you're gonna be on in life is gonna go according to who you're accountable to. If you're accountable to the street, you're gonna be a thug, and you're gonna get yourself in trouble. You know, when I was accountable to my oath, to my boss, I was a criminal, ended up in jail, ended up in trouble. You know, then I turned accountability over to my God, my wife, my children, people that care about me, so I stay straight. So I told them, watch who you hang with and make sure you're accountable to the right person that cares about you in life. And then number three, I tell them, listen, life is tough enough when everything is good. You're doing the right thing, everything's great, you're a perfect citizen, boom, pandemic hits. God forbid you get sick, you get into a car accident. Inflation, your country gets ruined. There's a hurricane, a storm, your house gets... Everything is good, you're doing everything right. When you do the wrong thing and you put more baggage on your shoulders to carry around, life becomes very, very difficult. You have to play it straight. And you know what? They listen because I've been fortunate. Everybody looks at the Mafia as the elite organized crime group in the world, and probably it is, you know, in ways. So I have a lot of credibility when I walk in, plus my experiences. I've been to prison. I've experienced just about everything anybody else can have in that life. So they pay attention. And hopefully we've been able to redirect this couple of kids that were going in the wrong way, because I've been doing this a long time. So, and I'm committed to that, you know, Goran, because I live by one thing: for those who have been given much, much is expected in return. And if you don't give back to people, you have no value in life at that point. That's how I feel.
Giving back.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of events. We've done 3-4 events with Michael around the world. We did Singapore. So my business partner, Harris, at that time, we did in Singapore. That's how I first met Michael. And a funny story. I came back from America. I was living in America for a year. Came back to Australia. And I get a phone call. And Harris goes, please, I need your help because I've hired somebody. He's an American former Mafia boss. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to set it up. I need your help. And I said, Harris, I can't. I just landed back. I go, Christina's going to kill me. He goes, please, brother, jump on a plane. I go, okay. So I jump on a plane. We go pick up Michael at 3 o'clock in the morning from the airport. Harris was like, I'm not coming to the airport. I'm staying in the hotel.
I remember that.
So we pick up Michael, security, we go get the van, we check into the airport, and we start doing PR. And one thing that Michael said, and you don't hear this from a lot of people, is anything you guys need. I remember that very, very clearly when we got to the hotel in front of Harris. He said, I'm here. Whatever you guys need to promote the event, whatever you need me to do, sign books, I'm here. I'm available. Call me, which is incredible because you don't get that from people. You know, it's normally what's the minimum I can do or the least I can do to get this event over and done with or this tour done with. So we completed Singapore. Another good funny story is the venue closed at about 11:30. The Q&A went for about 2 hours.
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember
Michael's
that.
wife was going to kill me. So the story there is the venue asked us, we have to take it outside. So we took it outside. Michael's still signing books. Now it's 11:30 at night, 12 o'clock in the morning. There's probably another 20, 30 people in the actual queue. And Cammie's like, all right, it's enough now. We've got to go. So she tells Harris, you got to go. He goes, I am not telling Michael. Goran sorted it out. So Goran goes, sort it out. So Michael, all right, we've got to wrap it up. Long story short, so we complete Singapore, we get to Australia, we run a couple of events, and I was engaged at the time, and then we're going to get married a year after, and Michael goes, I'm coming to your wedding. And I said, no problem, you're more than welcome, we'll send you an invitation. And the challenge we had in Australia is we had to get the visa. So we got it through for the event side, but we didn't have anything ready for the wedding side. And I've still got an email somewhere, but I remember Michael emailing the lawyer and going, I'm coming to this wedding, and if they don't let me in, how long will they detain me before I jump on another flight to get back to the US? So it's yeah. So we did get the visa. It came in about 2 hours before you boarded a plane. And I remember you calling me, going, "I'm jumping on that plane." I said, "Don't do that because they'll reroute you across." And yeah, I saw an email the other day. I was looking for something, and that was really funny and interesting.
And it was a great wedding. We had a great time. But you know, when I hear that, you know, I've built this career that I have in speaking. I've been doing it now for 20 years, just by being courteous to people, you know, because, you know, I'll give you an example. I went to a church I was speaking at. There was 25,000 in attendance, right? And we sell a lot of books. You know, it's an emotional buy. People here, you know how it is. They want to buy, they want your signature, talk to you for a minute at the book table. So my manager at the time had an argument with the church because they only wanted 200 books for 25,000 people. And he said, my client sells a lot of books. No, back and forth. I said, tell him that whatever books are left over, we'll take with us back because they don't want to do any work. So we sent 1,200 books, and the line was 5 hours. 5 hours. And everybody left the church, and my wife, and they were saying, come on, let's go. I said, these people are waiting on line 3 hours. I'm going to all of a sudden just say no and get up and leave? I can't do that. We stood there for 5 hours. We sold 1,200 books plus 244 more that they ordered. And I learned something from that. I said, if people can wait for 3-4 hours, why would I get up and leave? And just, to me, that's disrespectful. And, you know, and I really feel that way. And, you know, I've built that just by trying to give people courtesy and being respectful for them. And I don't like to hear, and I hear this all the time, oh, you know, half an hour this and that and that, and people make all these demands. You know, I've seen some of the most powerful people in the country, in my country, they had the power of life and death at their fingertips. And the next day they're in a 6x8 cell with somebody else's underwear and a jumpsuit. When you think you're above all of that, you're just kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself because life is so fragile. It could turn from 1 minute to the next. You know what the most humbling, scary thing is? When you really realize that you're nothing in life if you think you're something. Stand in front of a jury, 12 people, you know, a waiter, a garbage pail collector, you know, a teacher, people that maybe in life you think you're so far above them. Those 12 people can send you away for the rest of your life and destroy everything that you have. And you're standing there, and all you want to hear is the word not. It's the most tense moment in your life. And I faced jury 5 times. Any one of them could have changed the whole direction of my life. And I said, I have power? I don't have any power. These 12 people can destroy my life as I know it. When you focus on that and don't ever forget it, you realize who are you to treat people who mistreat people the wrong way. As long as they're respecting you, to me, you have respect until you lose it. I don't care who you are.
Well, respect is earned, right? It's not bought.
Exactly.
Right? You gotta earn
Exactly.
respect, and people think you can buy it. You can't.
You can't buy it. You got to earn it, and you have it until you lose it. And all these things stuck with me. You know what? I've been very blessed in that these things stick with me. And I found out when I had an instinct and I went against it, I always got myself in trouble. So I try not to go against my instinct.
Talking about respect, you had partners as the Russians as well. Is that right?
Yes.
You crew, and they respected you, and even they weren't Italian or part of the family and stuff.
No, but I treated them with respect. And I'll tell you something. If you want to cut this out later, we had a partnership for over 7 years. Made a tremendous amount of money together, got along, no problem. I treated them respectfully. Great partners, I have to say it. When I left the life, because it was illegal business, we were in the gas business together, I told my former associates, I said, listen, these guys are stand-up guys. Treat them right, and you'll go a long way with them. Well, they didn't. They tried to bully them and everything, and they didn't cooperate in that regard. And it ended up bad. They ended up going after them and trying to kill them. And actually, they did kill one of them. They killed one, they shot up the other guy. The other guy ran away, and the whole business was gone within 3 months. Something that I ran for almost 8 years was gone in 3 months because they didn't know how to treat them. You can't bully people sometimes, it doesn't work.
But as they say, if something's working, let it keep on working.
Let it work.
Like in normal business or any other business from that point of view. If you've got something that's working, don't reinvent the wheel. Let it be, right? Let it work. But I think it's probably, I don't know if it's people's ego or there's always something that people have to change, or I don't know. And we see that. I see it in business and.
It's a false sense of power, I always believe for a true person, it's not the position that gives you the power. It's you that give the position the power.
Correct. Yeah. It's not the title, where
Exactly.
a lot of people go title-based.
Yes.
I've got this title because this title. I'm going to boss you around.
Right.
Right. So
it's not.
Yeah.
That's a false sense of power. Because people are doing it because they have to, not because they want to. There's a real difference. And I always say this, there's a big difference between a leader and a boss. Now, a boss could be a leader also, but a boss not always a leader. And I believe a leader is only a true leader when people willingly want to follow that person. That's leadership. And you create that feeling.
Now, you were a captain. There was multiple captains in the family.
Yes.
You reported directly to the boss.
Yes.
Were you the boss at that time, or the boss directly? The other captains, they had their own crew and their own things that they were doing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you don't report to them. So pretty much you were equals in a sense.
Yes. When you're a captain, you report directly to the boss. And sometimes you're on the boss, but you have the ability to go directly to the boss. A soldier cannot. Has to go through his guy. If a soldier goes directly to the boss, going to be in trouble. His captain's going to be very upset with him, and you don't do that. And the boss and the right boss will say, what are you doing here? Go to your captain. He won't do it.
So there's like an organizational structure where there's a chain of command, and they follow that.
Yes, yes.
Who would you like to interview? I mean, you've got a successful YouTube channel that you've got. It's booming, it's growing. Who's somebody that's really interesting that you'd love to interview?
One of the most, well, actually he interviewed me, but it was kind of back and forth, was Jordan Peterson. Yeah, he brought a lot. He's a brilliant guy. He's a very brilliant guy, and he brought a lot out in me that I thought, we had covered so much, but he asked me questions from a different aspect, and got different things out of me. So, but I said it was mutual because I asked him questions also. I just like interesting people. I can't say there's one person that I'd really think, wow. I have my views politically, and believe it or not, I like to interview people that differ in their opinions of me. That's who I want to talk to, you know. But most of them won't come on with me. But I can't pinpoint any one real person. I mean, just I enjoy sitting and talking with people. So whoever has got something interesting to say.
Would you interview Trump?
I would love to interview Trump. Yeah, that would be funny.
That would be really cool. Yeah,
Yes, yes. May happen, you know, I've got a good platform, so, you know, a lot of people, Alan Dershowitz, you know, the attorney has reached out. You know who he is, right?
No.
Oh, he's a huge constitutional attorney. He represented Trump, represented O.J. Simpson, brilliant guy. And he reached out, and we were supposed to do an interview, but then I had to leave town, so when I get back, I'm going to do it. I'm very interested. I'd love to interview Giuliani,
Okay, yeah.
and he wrote the foreword of one of my books. You know, we were actually in an interview together. Somebody else was talking to the both of us, but I may do that. He's got his headaches now, obviously, but, you know, just people of that stature.
And guys, please, if you like this interview, please follow Michael. He's got his YouTube channel, Michael Franzese. It's growing, and yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much, Michael, for doing this, and really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and, you know, keep up the great work. You know, both here in Australia and hopefully in the United States, we'll do some things together. That's it. It's great.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.